Greetings, magical mavens. In a recent video, I defined for you my personal definitions of words like witch and magic. And at the end of that video, I promised you I would go back through my archives and gather for you a compilation of what those words have meant to the many magical mavens I've interviewed on the Alchemy of Affluence podcast these past 4.5 years. If you're new to my world, the dialogue portion of most of the videos you see on this YouTube channel are also available in audio format under Alchemy of Affluence podcast, anywhere where you can stream podcasts. It began back in 2018 when I realized how many amazingly magical people I was meeting through my witchy life and business, and I wanted to both give more of these people a platform to share their message and to bring these empowering messages to as many listeners as possible, since these people's ideas have so much inspired and empowered me along my journey. Many years, 150 episodes, tens of thousands of downloads, and multiple titles and rebrandings later, I invite you to join me for an enchanting trip down memory lane to hear from folks like Laura Daligan, Joanna DeVoe, Veronica Varlow, Molly Roberts, Nathaniel Solace, and many more on their personal definitions of words like witch and magic, and how they've embraced or not embraced these terms to step into their own personal power. To listen to the full episodes of any of these clips, after you've watched this video, you can check out the link in the episode description for a full directory. And I invite you to stay tuned to the end to hear a clip from the fun Inside Out episode where a guest actually comes on and interviews me on my own podcast. Brew yourself a cup of hot cocoa or mulled wine, and let's cozy up for a montage of magical messages. Obviously, we all already know the answer to this, but I would love if you would elaborate. Do you call yourself a witch, and why? And what is your definition of what makes you a witch?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I obviously do call myself a witch, and I feel it's a powerful word. I feel it's a word that reclaims a lot of female energy, a lot of female power. And even though it might scare a few people, I think it relates to a woman or a man or someone who really connects with the spirits in the world. And that's not spirits just dead people. I mean spirits like the spirits of the trees, spirits of the rock, spirits of the ancestors, the goddesses and the gods. They work with them and they connect with them and they honor them.
Another opportunity to elaborate on that, though, is my second question, which is, what is your definition of magic?
Oh, yes. My definition of magic is the beauty and the awe that I experience in the world around me, in the natural world, my connection to the divine, and my will to make positive changes in life.
I do call myself a witch publicly, but it's not something that I introduce myself as when I meet a new person, for example.
Yeah.
It's in the name of my business, but I don't run around going, "Hi, I'm Joanna, I'm a witch." But yeah, and if I called myself something else, what would it be? I do not know. An artist, even though what I've done with Kick-Ass Witch the last 6.5 years or so has not actually relied on my artsiness. It's just been a lot of talking and sharing these psycho-spiritual principles that I'm into about personal development and how magic comes into play. But I'm a very creative person, so I guess I would just say I'm a creative person or an artist.
Yeah, I totally feel you on that. I feel like before I used the word witch, I was first and foremost an artist looking for an expression. And what's really cool is that magic is a form of art, when you apply it the right way. And I feel like you do that really well.
Yeah, I think creative people gravitate frequently to witchcraft because I feel like it's the craft of spirituality, and it gives you these tools for crafting your own spirituality in a really personal way. And I love that. And it came into my life at a time when I really needed it.
So I don't know, you might have just covered it, but what would you say is your definition of magic?
Creating change in conformity with will. Sometimes I say creating a change of consciousness in conformity with will, but I think they're the same thing. Aleister Crowley, I think, is originally the person who said magic is creating change in conformity with will. And I believe was it Vivian Crowley who said it was creating a change in consciousness. But creating a change in consciousness changes everything. So basically they were saying the same thing.
Yeah, like I've heard the in conformity with your will version a lot, but I've never heard it like switch to consciousness. But like those of us who are into like the psycho-spiritual aspect of things, that's like exactly what we're doing.
Yes. Yeah, change yourself, change your whole world. And what's interesting to me too, something I've really been focusing on in recent years is like, I'm not talking about changing who you are. I'm talking about becoming more of who you've always been. And so when I'm talking about change, I'm really talking about changing all the weird old programs that were put in your head before you were old enough to decide, like, yes, I do want to have this belief system, things like that. Releasing fear, stuff like that is, to me, the most powerful way to change your life. I've experienced the greatest change in my own life that way. That's what I mean when I'm talking about creating change. I'm not necessarily saying like be a whole different person than you are right now.
Yeah, finding your magic is about waking up to something that's already inside of you. You know what I mean? Like more
Absolutely.
So than something completely other than yourself.
The whole idea of know thyself, to me, like know thyself, which it's so important. And it's a life's work getting to know yourself because we have all these strange fears and belief systems and these old programs that are put in place when our little minds are very sponge-like and they just absorb everything from our environments. And then, the school system, maybe the churches that some of us grew up in, the culture at large, magazines, TV, movies, it all like shapes us in these ways based on other people's agendas. So when you start like digging deep to be like, who am I? Know thyself, know thyself. It's such a fascinating journey. And I have found the more I've gone down this journey and then also working with clients, the more you get to the core of who you are, it's love. It's a very loving energy. And so it's not a selfish thing, which I think it could sound like if you were just encountering these ideas, like, oh, wow, a bunch of navel gazing, woohoo, how fun it must be to be you. Let's analyze. And I think it maybe starts out that way, like analyzing yourself and going into your childhood. And I think that's an essential step in the process for a lot of us. But ultimately, you start getting more joy and more love and a greater sense of connection as all that old weird junk starts falling away.
I do consider myself, I'm a witch. I am a spiritual naturalist and I was raised pagan. I don't really subscribe to any in-the-box ritualized notion of paganism or witchcraft. I'm very much a solitary practitioner. In my spiritual naturalist leanings, I appreciate patterns, and I think that we are a part of a greater pattern, and I spend my life looking at patterns in relationships and behavior and in a spiritual sense in nature and the seasons, and just trying to put ourselves into the pattern and to break dysfunctional ones and shed them.
Yes. That's what magic is.
Yeah.
For sure.
Magic is being a part of the pattern and flowing with it, and also being a participant in the pattern.
Instead of like having it happen to you.
Yeah, and being mindful of it.
Yeah.
So that's magic to me.
Thank you. That, I never could have described it that well, but yes, the whole noticing toxic patterns versus healthy patterns and then making intentions around that is the most magical thing ever.
The magic that I work with as a marriage and family therapist is helping people rekindle love, and that is its own special kind of niche.
I'm a love witch.
Yes. Yeah, shed your trauma, get connected, let's find some magic there. Yeah.
I love it.
Which works. I feel like it's a term that I outgrew a long time ago in some aspects, just because I associate it with Wicca a lot, or most people associate it with Wicca, and that's a little too light and fluffy for me. But regardless of whether somebody knows about my religious beliefs, they always call me a witch from everything else that I'm doing and creating. So it's just kind of like this thing that I associate with me regardless, because yes, I use outside forces to influence what I'm creating and what I'm doing in my life, and I think we all can.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I love the word witch, but it drives me nuts when people assume that it means the same thing as Wicca, because there's witches from every culture.
Lately, I've been leaning towards priestess, but really, I would just call myself powerful.
Oh, I love that. It's simple and well said. I'm powerful, you guys. That's all that matters.
Is all that matters.
What is your definition of magic?
Being able to use the energy of the world around us to create our desires.
Now, more than ever, as I reconnect back to my childhood and I, step more into my truth, I start remembering those parts of me. And actually, it's interesting because Daniel was the one that pointed out and asked me if I was a witch because I spent so much time in a dark room with my crystals and lighting candles and with my cards. And he wasn't doing it to insult me, but because he's not fully, understanding the spiritual path that I'm on, he often wonders if I'm a witch. But I think now, like I said, more than ever, I'm actually embracing that. And I'm totally okay with it because I'm understanding the history of witches and why they were called witches at the time. I feel like I'm stepping more into that and I'm okay with it.
I love that. I should really start making this a question on the podcast. Like, who has had the Darren and Samantha syndrome from Bewitched, where they get married and then he finds out she's a witch and they have to deal with that? I feel like that happens in real life a lot.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the witch is out of the closet and being okay with it, because there's some, I don't know what the perception is of witches, but that they're evil and they're mean and they've got superpowers, but it's like the word bitch. You could turn it around. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a different perspective. And so, yeah, I do feel like now more than ever, I'm actually owning my witchy side and I'm okay with it.
I know. It's so true. How I think our generation is reclaiming words that used to be thought of as insults. And we're like, you know what? Actually, screw that. I'm going to own this and make the good parts of it something to be proud of.
Yeah. Redefine it. Leave the rest behind.
Redefine and leave the rest behind. I love that.
Yeah. Ooh.
Okay. So in that case, because you have mentioned a little bit of your magical side and what that looks like, but what is your definition of magic?
The definition of magic for me is doing things or experiencing things that make no logical sense. Magic is for me, feels like a miracle. So whenever we create magic in our life, magic in our relationship, or, when we desire something and it doesn't make sense logically, and our situations don't complement, the thing that we want, but we are so committed to our inner power that we decide and then do whatever it takes to make it happen. I feel like coming from that place and space of following your truth and just doing what feels good and lights you up, the result is the magic you create. But the magic needs to start within, right? You need to really create that within yourself and believe your own inner magic to really see that in the world. And I think that's the power of manifestation. That's the power of miracles. When you follow the thing that just doesn't make sense, and then using your mental strength, using your emotions, using your thoughts, using your, the inspired action to actually materialize what you want, that's pretty magical.
Absolutely. You have to believe it to see it, not the other way around.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. You have to, and even another way to look at that is you have to see it. So for me, I'm all about visualization. I am obsessed with vision boards. So part of a lot of what I teach is being able to see it. And so if you can see your reality through meditation, through vision boarding, through, journaling, the more that belief will actually strengthen. So the seeing is not necessarily in the material world, but seeing it in your mind helps you to actually believe it. And then you can have it.
I don't necessarily call myself a witch. I think I used to when I first started the journey, but right now I identify more with an intuitive or a psychic medium.
Yeah. Why do you feel like you disconnected from the word witch, just out of curiosity?
Most of my practice is done privately. So I feel like more of who I am and who I identify with is tarot related. whereas my witchy side is more of my personal journey. I think that's why I like to keep it more intimate for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. And I feel like some people just have like a certain connotation of the word witch. So it makes sense to just kind of like take that out of the equation so people can really see you like as who you are instead of just as some title.
Yes.
What is your definition of magic?
Ooh, magic to me is whatever you manifest energetically. So setting your intention for something that you desire and putting your goals into it and physically taking action, but you're also manipulating your energy to gain what it is that you're wanting or looking for. Magic is everywhere. It's wishing. It's making wishes on shooting stars. It's blowing out candles. In the card readings that I do, it's to me, magic is energy.
Do you consider yourself a witch?
If you asked me this before you were on my podcast last week, I would have probably said no. But once you were able to explain what that was, now I totally do.
Every intuitive manifesting babe, I feel like, is a witch, and
yes,
you definitely got it going on. So
I'm so intuitive too.
Are you?
I should be tapping into it more. I can't remember what the proper term is. Is there one that's like a feeling?
Yeah, and I don't know the name of it either, but I know just what you mean. Is it clairsentient or no? Maybe that's where you just know things. I'm really bad with clairs.
What's clairvoyant? Clairvoyant's when you see it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not that one. Mine's like a feeling and then a knowing. So like I have this like feeling, or either it's like a feeling and then a knowing, or sometimes it's just one or the other. Yeah, but like I'll just know. I guess maybe it's the knowing. I don't know which one's stronger, but like I'll generally have either a feeling or a knowing or both.
Note to self, I need to get my shit together and memorize all the different clairs. Then I'll feel like I'm on the next level in my witchy badge once I know those, but I don't.
Same here.
What is your definition of magic?
Getting clear on your biggest desires and then making that happen and like having those things and living that lifestyle and just kind of like taking what was once fantasy to you and making that your reality. That's my definition.
Absolutely a witch. Natural witch, earth witch, biz witch. Yeah, for sure.
All of the witches. What is your definition of magic then?
I perceive magic to be like the energy that's in everything, between everything, like the cosmic energy of creation, essentially. It's in all of us. It's like in the seen and the unseen, the in-between things, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that intangible energy that like connects everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you call yourself a witch?
I don't. I feel like I almost haven't earned the title, if that makes sense. I just recently started calling myself an occultist. So I see myself as someone who's like studying it, even though I've been studying it for probably like 10 years now, or maybe more. But I still feel like I haven't earned it in a real weird way. I feel like witches are very dedicated to their rituals, and I'll go through phases where I'm totally undedicated and everything I do is really psychological, if that makes sense.
I like that though. I feel like occultist kind of has a different mysterious ring to it. Like I love that word.
I just recently kind of rebranded, and before I still had a lot of fear around really like diving into the occult and like the whole witch niche, which is so crazy because like all my following are witches, like all of them. But I still had like so much fear around going into that. And I thought about calling myself a witch and introducing the brand that way, but it just didn't feel right yet. Like I felt like I personally wasn't there yet. And so in my research, I found the term occultist, which basically just means someone who believes in like this mysterious X factor, believes in some form of magic and studies it. And I'm like, that's me. So yeah. I feel really comfortable with it.
Yeah, it totally suits you. So like, what is your definition of that magic or like that mystery?
I feel like people think that magic is I don't know, something that just kind of like instantly swoops in and saves the day. But I see it as this kind of mysterious force that you're co-creating with. And to me, all of the possibilities are open. You know, it could be just a force. It couldn't have, you know, maybe a body, or maybe it's a god, or maybe it's a goddess, or maybe it's neither. I don't know what it is, but I know that it exists from my personal experience, and I don't really ever slap a label on it. When you leave it open that way, you know, there are some days where I'm feeling particularly like goddessy. I love Artemis. I have like a little Artemis altar, and I don't even necessarily believe that she as a woman exists, but I can kind of like tap into that archetype. And then there are other days where I wake up and I say like a traditional Catholic prayer that I learned in Portuguese when I was young, and I'll listen to like Catholic hymns. So for me, it's all the same, and I feel like it's whatever you're feeling is going to be the most powerful.
I definitely did not call myself a witch until 7 years ago, but today I actually take the pride to be one of them. And I think if there is any woman who considers herself sacred or divine, is a witch.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So what is your definition of magic?
You know, magic, you always see this guy doing tricks or this lady doing tricks on some show or parties, and that's what magic meant to me most of my life, I would say. And the more I am getting involved into discovering my witch side and my divinity and my sacredness, I realize that magic is not something that we do, but magic is something that we truly are. It's all about returning to our divine nature, pretty much. For me, on a daily basis, it begins with connecting with my deep essence, my true essence, my divine nature. And I make it a practice that I wake up and I tap into that resource that, you know, each one of us have. And the more we are connected to this essence, it leads us to beautiful synchronicities, and the magic unfolds for the day. And of course, there are days when, you know, things just don't work as we want, and the magic may seem like non-existent and not working. But those are the days I think it's important to remember different practices, divinations, the goddesses, the fairies. There's so many things available to us. We are living in the bestest of time, that we have access to a lot of information and a lot of tools that we as women can now practice to really incorporate this magic with the K.
Do you consider yourself a witch?
I feel like secretly, yes, but I don't really say it. I'll usually say it as a joke. I'll be like, I'm so witchy, but I don't claim it as like a title as of right now. I do feel very witchy. When I was in the Bahamas, me and the girls did a spell, and it was the coolest thing ever. It was a money spell, if anybody is wondering. So not outwardly, I don't, but I would probably say that I'm basically a witch.
Okay, I'm definitely going to want the details on that money spell later. But
Yes.
That sounds awesome. So what is your definition of magic? Because I know that even though like witch is not like a big part of your title, I know magic is one of the pillars of your brand. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So magic to me is, the way I do it in my brand is I talk about defining your own magic. So that could be anything from like religion to spirituality to using tarot to astrology. I think of magic as all like the fun and like whimsical tools we have access to. And in terms of like religion and spirituality, we have access to deciding what we believe in. And for like the tools and tricks, we have access to learning about astrology, learning about tarot, crystal, like I'm holding crystals right now, and all of this fun stuff. So that's magic to me, is really being able to tap into the resources around us, physical and non-physical, and make them work in our favor. I always say that I make the universe work for me while I'm drinking my Starbucks. So it's like, it's all these things around us that we can just tap into to create our best lives, really. So that's what I would say magic is to me.
Do you consider yourself a witch?
I do and I don't. I do because I know that's part of my soul lineage, and I've been a witch many, many, many lifetimes. I don't because in this lifetime, I feel like I'm more associated or connected to the goddesses and the priestess energy than the witch energy. But again, it's a question of definition of what do we actually mean by witch. So yes and no.
Yeah, how would you define priestess differently from witch? I know there's definitely some key differences, but I feel like everybody kind of thinks of it a little bit different. So I would love to hear your opinion on that.
So for me, a priestess lives in a temple. She is dedicated to the goddess by living in a temple. And a witch, to me, I get images of medieval forests and potions and all of that. So I feel like a witch is more earth-based, earth-connected, and a priestess is more cosmically connected.
I absolutely call myself a witch. This really transpired for me probably in the last 6 or 7 years of my practice. I'm confidently calling myself a witch in public, so I'm very much out of the broom closet in that way. And I think that a witch is someone who isn't afraid to change things. I think it's a person who changes things and makes things. And I recognize that witch has not been in vogue. It wasn't for our ancestors. No one ran around calling themselves a witch. They wanted to live. So this is a new occurrence for us. But I do think it is really an electrifying word, which is why I like to use it. I think it has a lot of social and political connotations that really make it a powerful word. So yeah, I'm proud to own that word. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so ironic. Well, I guess it's not ironic. It's how like cultures change, but it's so interesting how like witch was originally like an insult, and now like we're just embracing it, and like everybody and their mom wants to call themselves a witch. And I just find it really fascinating how like culture just changes on its head.
Language changes. It absolutely does. It's powerful. Yeah.
It really does. So what is your definition of magic then?
I have lots of different definitions of magic depending on how you use the word. I like to use it as a noun and a verb. But I think that magic is about making changes in the micro to affect the macro. I think it's about using intentions and being proactive and taking actions to create changes in consciousness, because that's how we experience the world. I think that magic is about recognizing, potentially honoring, and or tapping into patterns and cycles in nature to potentially to benefit and enhance your wellness. That's one way. I also think that magic can be a word that describes our curiosity, our wonder, how receptive we are to possibilities. So I think there's
oh my God, I love that. Our receptibility to possibility.
Receptibility, a word. We just made up a word. I'm into it.
It is now.
Language is powerful, so we're going to make up words.
Word magic, dude. Do you call yourself a witch? Why or why not? And if not, what would you call yourself instead?
It's a really good question. I've really been thinking about this. I think I would call myself a witch, but I don't talk about it that way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We have so much power to decide what we want to do with our lives and help others and tap into intuition and everything. But I still think the word witch or witchcraft in general is still very perceived as something, I don't know if I want to say dangerous, but like something kind of weird. I think if I called myself a witch, people would be like, what's going on with her, you know?
Yeah, like it's not for everyone. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because it keeps kind of coming up in the like social media world. But even using the word witch is kind of calling back to a time when witch was like an insult or like an accusation, but people are like reclaiming it. So it automatically kind of has that undertone of like rebellion in it. It's kind of cool and it's fun for some of us who really like to use it, but for others, it's almost like pointless to use it when we could just realize that we all have inherent magic and that we don't need labels, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree.
So what is your definition of magic?
I think magic is very magical, obviously, but I think it's not just a coincidence. I think with every single thing we do and with every daily practice, with every meditation, with every decision that we take, we contribute to our own magic and to our own magical life.
Do you consider yourself a witch?
I don't know. Like, I kind of think like all women, right, have this kind of like witchy side to them because, you know, like but I think it's because of like the misconstrued tone that people have kind of given the word. We all have this intuition. We all have this magical power within us. And so if you think about it in that terms, then I think, yeah.
Yeah, totally. There's a little witch in every woman.
Yeah, I think so.
Love it. So what is your definition of magic?
I think magic is when the unexpected, or maybe sometimes the expected, but it happens in unexpected timing, really comes to fruition in a way that feels really good. And I want to say magical, but without using the same word in the definition, just like a feeling, just like this high vibrational feeling where you're just like, oh, wow, that was exactly how it needed to happen.
I love that. Those just like amazing synchronicities that feel like miracles. And you're just like, yes, how did this happen?
Yeah.
I definitely call myself a witch. I feel like I call myself a witch because I know that witch is more of an essence. It's kind of like an essence that a lot of us, I feel, are reclaiming, and like a power that we're reclaiming. So I feel like it's not just, it's not inclusive to just one thing, you know, an artist or a singer-songwriter or a painter, like they can all be witches. They all have their own sense of witchcraft. So that's why I call myself a witch.
I love that. And like, as someone who kind of started more on the art side of things and then went into the witchy side of things, I totally agree with you. I feel like artists and creators of all kind, as long as they're like tapped into their intuition and kind of dancing to the beat of their own drum, we're all kind of magical people, you know?
Exactly. So that's how I feel about the word witch. I'm like, it's not just about, you know, conducting spells in the traditional sense or anything like that. It's just an essence that you have that you're able to tap into.
Totally agree with you. So on that note, what would you define as magic?
I feel like magic is more about channeling like a certain energy, like directing it into a certain focus. I really feel like magic is very much like a concentrated sort of energetic sphere that you're able to direct. And that's how I see it, at least. I see it as this, again, like something else that's also an essence, this ability that you have to like move energy and create some kind of outcome with it and like an intent for it. And so that's how I see magic in our modern world, really. And obviously there's also the sort of like supernatural part of it, where it's just this sort of unexplained sensation, unexplained, you know, feelings, and those just moments of like arousal in your life. Like that's how I feel magic also kind of manifests in my life or in the people's lives that I know. So that's how I define magic for myself.
Do you guys consider yourselves witches?
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
I think we both do.
I think we both do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What is your like definition of a witch?
I feel like it's just somebody who's really in tune with nature and the cycles of the earth and your body and just all of those sort of things. And I feel like for both of us, we've kind of stepped into this role, especially over the past year.
Yes,
and then,
definitely.
You know, getting into when we started this business together, we're really kind of embracing that witchy side.
Love it. Is that your answer too?
That's definitely my answer.
What you said.
What you said.
Amazing. So what is your definition of magic then?
I was thinking about this, and For me, I feel like it's the ability to kind of tap into this feeling of universal love, like that feeling of oneness. Like whenever I feel like a spark of magic or synchronicity or something, I feel like I get a glimpse into that. So I feel like, being able to kind of tap into that oneness that's within, without, but, just kind of being able to feel that in the moment. Beautiful.
She has beautiful words. I know. I'm like, well. That's I think when people hear the word magic, they think, abracadabra, all that fun stuff, but that's not at all what I feel magic is. I feel like it is something that's within you, and it's something that you show the world, and it's about manifesting, and it's about just being you. And I think that we all have kind of like our own definitions of magic, and it's just something that's beautiful that you show the world, and it can show itself in just many different ways. So
love it.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a witch? Why or why not? And if not, would you call yourself something else?
Well, I definitely will accept the title. I don't have anything against it. I think that I've probably called myself a witch a lot during my life, mainly a time-space witch, but that's a video game reference.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about what a time-space witch is.
The time-space witch is someone who can walk through time and space and just kind of like knows the right timing for everything and comes into your life at the magical moment, seems to know the right thing to say. She's just got good timing.
I love that. So you're just that like magical unicorn that sweeps into people's lives exactly when they need you.
Yeah, even when they don't want it sometimes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, the loving witch slap that sometimes people don't want to receive.
Yeah, the plutonic force.
Mm-hmm. So what is your definition of magic?
Well, I think that magic is the way that the unseen affects the seen. And when you're in touch with the unseen, you can manipulate it to affect the physical world around you. For me, I think the world itself is magical by nature. And I think that us as a society and a species have kind of lost touch with that. We take it for granted, like, the sun rises every day, the moon going around, like the tides, we just take that, oh, that's just how it is. But to me, I'm like in awe of that kind of thing. I really think that life is a miracle, and I really feel like there's no reason for this to exist. Like, it's completely magical, and no matter how much science can explain things, I just feel like the nature of the world is completely magical.
Yeah, it's kind of like that saying that you'll see on Instagram that's like, we live on a floating blue planet revolving around a giant fireball, and you don't think that magic is real? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Or you're a ghost driving a meat skeleton or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen that one too. And it's so funny. Like, everything about life is so ridiculous, but like some people have just normalized it to a point where they don't think anything is magical or interesting. And it's like,
yeah, they don't really question it. They're just like, this is how it is. And I remember growing up as a kid, I'm like, do other people realize how weird this is? I'm just like freaking out the fact that I have a body and I'm like, I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself a witch? And if not, what would you prefer to call yourself?
I wonder if it's like totally my fault that I think witch is like a female role. And then like, I would think wizard and witch are kind of like interchangeable and then a different gender kind of thing. I don't know. So maybe I'm a wizard, which is, yes, I'm a witch, but I'm just a boy witch. So I'll say yes. Let's just make it a yes. Yeah, why not? As long as that's not offending anybody, let's do it.
Honestly, like, I love that we're having this conversation right now, because there's a lot of talk actually for the past few years about whether or not witch is a gender neutral term. So I'm excited to get some different perspectives on that. And you're one of the only guys I've ever had on the show. So I appreciate this conversation right now. So for you, a witch is a
totally.
Wizard's a boy.
Yeah. I haven't like studied witchery or Wicca or all these kind of things. See, like, I don't even know if I'm saying the right thing, right? So clearly I'm not all the way in that camp. So basically my reference is based off of what I've seen in movies and TV shows and books and things like that. And then I've never met a man who calls himself a witch. So that's kind of the only reference I have, you know. I think even what's more important about that question in the first place is like the principles that it's based on and like where that's even coming from. Someone who chooses to be a witch, like what the intention is behind that. And for me, that's like a deep connection to the earth and to spirituality and to things unseen and to lots of very beautiful things. So if that's like the prerequisite, then yeah, I'm like as witchy as it comes, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And you say you don't know many men who consider themselves witches. Neither do I. I feel like it does tend to be female identified as a term, but I have just seen so many like memes and, you know, articles where people are like, witch is a gender neutral term. So I like that though. I like being allowed to say wizard without people saying like, you don't have to call him a wizard. He's just a male witch. You know, I like the word wizard.
Yeah.
It suits you, and I think it suits a lot of people. So I'd probably call myself a wizard if I was a guy too.
Totally. Great. I'll wear the badge with honor.
I love it. So you almost went into this there, but what is your definition of magic? Like what makes a person a witch/wizard to you?
Well, gosh. Well, those are two different questions.
Oh, okay.
Right. Definition of magic. Right. Definition of magic. That's a really good question. I forgot who said this, but like magic is basically just science we haven't figured out yet. I don't think there's anything abnormal about it. I think it's just the lack of its presence in like modern culture that makes it like this thing, like an esoteric thing or a, you know, mysterious fringe kind of thing. As far as what makes somebody in that camp, it's like it's a type of devotion, I would say. It's a type of courage, right? It's like being willing to like look at stuff people aren't looking at, the willingness to like be made fun of, the willingness to like be different and to stand out and be questioned and all these kinds of things. And when I say devotion to me is like a commitment steeped in love, steeped in a really meaningful context, right? So I think anyone who's chosen to take that kind of path is also accepting everything that comes with it, which is like, I'm stepping into the unknown. I'm willing to look at like some scary things. I'm willing to look at like some powerful things. I'm willing to look at things people have created wars over and killed people over. And it's like, there's a lot of intensity that comes with it. It's not just like lighting candles and manifesting a boyfriend, you know, it's like, it's not that, right? Like, it's cool that it can be utilized into wonderful things like that make our lives wonderful. But I think if we're looking at it from a really genuine sense, it's a lot deeper. My girlfriend's a witch, and you know, like when you look at like the witch trials and stuff, it's like we have killed so many people, mostly women. I'm sure some like intuitive, sensitive men as well. But it's like it's the fact that happened means like, all right, if you're choosing to do that, you're choosing to like join a camp of people that's connected to a lot of intensity, right? And I think it's in to the degree to which like society pushes it away and hides from it and avoids it and ignores it and makes fun of it, just adds to that intensity and adds to the kind of like how special it is to even, you know, like be like go on that path. So because it's also different for each person, but I'd say there's a theme. If there was something that's same for everyone, it is a willingness to explore realms that many don't. And I'd say that takes a lot of courage. So I'd say that takes a very special kind of person to like choose that path.
Do you consider yourself a witch? Why or why not? And if not, what would you call yourself?
I do not consider myself a witch as much as a shaman. It's less about personal magic from within myself as the worldly and natural, sometimes supernatural magic that I observe around me. I feel much more like a vessel. In that sense, where especially when I'm on stage or I'm performing, it feels like a trance. It's something, like I said, one of my favorite things to do when I'm on stage, especially when I'm telling jokes, is to kind of, at some point, I just kind of get out of my own body and I can see myself telling the jokes as like another audience member. And that's why I've always associated myself more as a shaman than a witch. Because it's all about the magic that surrounds me, not my personal magic. It's the magic and it's been given to me, and then I like to kind of prism outward.
So the magic moves through you and into your performance.
Yes, and when the performance is successful, it moves into then other people. I mean, that's why I love performance so much. It's not, and then live performance. I can be funny in my apartment alone with my cat, but it does help to have a group of people experiencing it all. And the more people experiencing, the greater the magic really becomes.
It's almost like a tree falls in the forest. Does anyone hear it or whatever? It's like, is it comedy if no one's there to laugh?
Exactly.
So I guess that kind of spills into your definition of magic then. But like specifically, what would you say your brand of magic is?
I think magic is, to me, something a little more. It's a little more than natural. It's taking those mundane moments and just adding a little extra of our personal selves, our spirituals and our emotionals. Like, to take a hack premise, isn't it crazy how you always lose a sock in the dryer? That's the natural is that that happens. We move on. The supernatural is, but what could be happening to that sock? Why is this happening to that sock? And then creating something that in comedy, it's so much of it is unknown and mysterious and in some ways illogical. But despite it being so illogical, everyone from 50 to 150 people in the room can all follow that train of illogicism. And to me, that's part of the comedy, is creating these breaks in the things we take for granted, breaking that and then allowing the supernatural or the absurd or the surreal to sort of enter and giving yourself that moment of, well, what else could be?
Yes, I definitely call myself a witch. Kind of transitioning, trying to find a word that might feel a little bit more in your face, but witch is symbolic of rebellion and just being a strong, independent person.
Totally. Now I'm curious though, like what would be more in your face than the word witch? Like some people think that's too in your face.
That's true. That is very true. There's so many words out there for people who like have taken control of their destiny, and I'm still trying to just find, like, I register with the word bruja a lot. I've heard
I like that one too.
Yeah, like wild woman. Something that's just a little more chaotic, I guess, for me.
Okay, I love that. You're going to have to keep me posted because I want to know what you come up with. So on that note, what is your definition of magic?
Magic to me is using tools that you have, using nature, using a natural rhythm to physically manifest things into your reality.
Are you a witch?
Yes, I am.
What is a witch to you?
Well, I feel like I've heard a lot of people have like conflicting answers and point of views about it, but I feel like it's such a natural state of being, not just for like being alive on this planet, but especially being a woman. We're just like naturally creative. And it just, it doesn't feel like anything that is R-rated or incredibly wild. It just seems like the most natural state of being to use the gifts and elements that are around us to transmute our reality. So I have no problem saying I'm a witch. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's like it's not even supernatural, it's natural.
Yeah, that is quite a slogan. It's a t-shirt.
So on that note then, like what is your definition of magic? Is it just like being your natural and true self, or do you feel like magic is something more specific for you?
I never even define it. Like I never even think about it like that. It's like, what is breathing? It's like, it's just the way that we live. So I guess, I don't know, I guess the magic that I do is just I think we're doing magic all the time without realizing it. Like we're responding to our environment. And if you're really conscious, you're actually deliberately focusing on what you want to focus on. Mm-hmm. And it's just the degree to how much you want to play with it. So I've been kind of a lazier magician or lazier witch and just kind of freestyling. Like just, okay, as I walk up these steps, I'm going to step into this better version of me, or I'm going to step into this new reality. But if I wanted to get really intense with it, like I'll just, set aside time and like use the moon cycles or use other elements or food. I love food magic. Food magic is great on the go. Coffee magic. Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question.
Oh, definitely. Like, I totally agree. Like, I do love to do a formal ritual every once in a while, but for the most part, like, I'm a witch just because I put magic into, making the coffee. Like you were saying,
Yeah.
I literally have a coffee incantation. You know what I mean? Just the basic parts of like going through life and making sure that you're being magical instead of getting sucked into, the mundane. So totally agree with you on that.
So up until recently, I would not have called myself a witch or used that term, although I do lots of rituals and witchy things. But when you shared your definition actually of what a witch was, and really kind of being in energetic control of your life, I was like, oh, for sure. So you probably won't ever find witch like in my business title, but I now identify with your definition of it. And I definitely identify with the word spiritual and just like a being of the universe.
I love that. And yeah, I feel like one of the reasons why I like to share like that really open-ended version of like a definition of a witch is because I kind of want to get people's gears turning and be like, oh, that's not really what I would normally think of as a witch, but yeah, I can get behind that. So
yeah,
I'm glad that resonated. But yeah, I mean, everyone doesn't have to have a giant pentacle hanging from their neck and screaming from the rooftops, I'm a witch. Like, just being spiritual, I feel like is such a powerful thing. And I love that you do that in a way that's like really approachable. So that's awesome. Cool. So on that note, what do you feel your definition of magic is?
I think that it's really your intentions and dreams come to life.
Do you consider yourself a witch?
I think I do. I think we're all witches. I think we all have like a great power within us, and it can either be used for help or for harm. And I definitely like know that about myself, and I choose to use it for good for the most part. But yeah, I do consider myself a witch. I think we all are, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, there's a little witch in every woman.
Yes, definitely.
So what then is your definition of magic?
I think my definition of magic is like really harnessing that power to influence the events of our lives, like our life creation, and to like just consciously create that. And you really can make things happen and bring things into reality that you want to make happen, whether you have like little rituals around it or, you just bring your energy to it. And I think we've all kind of had those moments where something we dreamt of or something we wanted or didn't want came into our lives. And I think it's just really, like that's my definition of magic, just that power within us all that we have to influence the outcome of our life.
I absolutely would call myself a witch. I call myself a witch because I am connected and in tune with my inner magic, my inner life force, and my inner power, if you will.
I totally love that. And that's such like a simple and beautiful way of summing up what it means to be a witch. I love that.
Yes.
So I guess this is a similar question, but what is your definition of magic?
My definition of magic stems from the Hindu tradition in India. And to me, it is Shakti, and that means power. And another word for that is potency. And it's essentially our inner life force that is one with us. So it's always there, it's always existing, but we have the kind of job of remembering that it exists and then learning to work with it and tap into it.
I love that. And it really is about remembering, because we're all born with this power, aren't we? It's kind of just like the way we've grown up that kind of has caused us to forget who we are, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Obviously, you call yourself a witch. It's part of your title. But what is like the definition of a witch or the definition of magic to you?
Well, the definition, they're different, but on the quick, I'm going to say my definition of a witch, because I think this is important, is somebody that is willing to go deep and work with their own inner deep, natural, raw, wild self, which is what magic is to me, and put it out there in the world to make themselves feel really good and confident and strong and manifest the life that they want to lead. And then I think it moves outward. It touches their friends, it touches their family, it touches their community. So I think being a witch is extremely powerful and important. And so many people ask me, like, what do I need to do to be a witch? And I'm like, just claim your power and then do your practice and go for it. Because I feel like when we were little, we were so in touch with our witchy selves and our intuition and our imagination. So I feel like it's a natural thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always say magic is not supernatural. Magic is natural. We just have to like remember that it's our thing.
I love that. I love that. It's peeling back the layers from growing up and being an adult. It's pulling all that back. I think when we're little kids, we're the most natural witches because we're so involved in our intuition and our imagination, and anything is possible in our little minds. And I think that the best witches have that as adults. Mm-hmm. And like, it's just getting back to that beautiful space, but using our adult self to practice and learn and continue to grow.
What is your definition of magic?
So I actually have two. There's like the whole emotional magic thing where it would be anything that lights you up and makes you smile and brings joy to your life. And when I think about this kind of magic, I really tend to think of children because I think kids are the most magical corporeal beings on this earth. They just always seem to bring hope and laughter with them wherever they go. And I think especially where we are right now as a society and a culture, we could use that magic and laughter that children have with them. So that's one definition. The other one is the one that you put on Facebook, which is like being aware of your energy and the energy of those around you, and then using it and that awareness for the good of all.
What is your definition of magic?
I feel like it's a reality that's always there until we, become aware of it, that it becomes that magical experience. But since it's something that it's always around us, we're born with it, we carry it within ourselves and all in what we do. Magic, like the magic tricks, you want to see all of these like effects and things going on. Like in the TV, you see all these magical things happening. That is magic in my mind, right? But the reality of it, it's different. I think it's more of experience that it's carried out with, depending on what we believe. But it's always there, you know. And some people do magical things, and that I've seen, like physically, transpire because of the power level that they have in how they connect with magic. So I've seen it, I think that's why we connected, because like that was magic to me, like how the animals kind of like connected us, even you accepting my messages and responding back. That to me was magic. So that's like the way of me experiencing it as I walk this path that I'm, walking right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like magic is not always sparkles and, cauldrons and all of that. Sometimes it's just connecting with the right people, places, things, and experiences, being in the right place at the right time, and amazing things happen.
Exactly.
Do you call yourself a witch? And if not, what would you call yourself instead?
I've definitely started to embrace the word more so, I'd say, in the last year. Yeah, I called myself a mystic for a long time, but always knew that I had like a lot of witchiness in me, and just kind of starting to go more public with it now, which feels awesome.
Well, congratulations. Welcome to the witchy title. Yeah, I love the term mystic too. It's kind of just, it has this beautiful mystery to it almost. And I mean, I feel like witch packs a punch though, so it's kind of fun to use witch as well.
For sure.
So what is your definition of magic?
My definition of magic, being such an advocate for connecting with the divine through prayer, first and foremost, I believe and I feel like magic is the aligned action that we take to co-create with the divine, with God. So that's where we get to bring our creativity into the whole process of manifesting, creating and answering our own prayers in that way, in a really fun and creative way.
Well, magic, to me, it's combining your imagination and your inner power to create your desires, right? To create and influence the energy around you. So it's just playing with energy and influencing it in a way that not necessarily controls an outcome, but just, it guides you towards the things that you want. And yeah, I would say I consider myself a witch.
Obviously, you call yourself a witch, but what does being a witch mean to you?
So I think that the word, there's really been a reclamation of the word in recent years. Obviously it's had a negative connotation for a long time. And I think that people, whether they started off with Wicca or, just came to witchcraft on their own in another way, I think that witch is really powerful for a lot of people because it feels like kind of reclaiming something that, has a lot of power, but has been seen negatively by a lot of people. So I consider myself a cottage witch, which is like a holistic combination of kitchen witchery and garden witchcraft and just like daily life, which I think is really powerful.
So what would be your definition of magic?
So I think that magic is really kind of the way that like the mystical and, our idea of mysticism intersects with just the natural world. I'm really big on like the psychological element of magic and how like the correspondences of the elements are often related to, something's physical being, its physical entity, like things that are, ruled by the earth tend to like grow underground, be like roots or potatoes, things like that. And that you can get a sense of what the magic of something is by what its real world use or physical body is. So I think there's just a real intersection between like mysticism and nature.
What is your definition of magic?
It's the things we don't understand that happen, and just letting those things that we don't understand happen, and actually the wonder, being able to just be awed by those things we don't understand.
I love that. And when I first started getting into magic, that's what attracted me to it to some extent. But over the years, I got really excited about how can I make things happen? How can I change the world? And now I'm kind of circling back around to that. It's all about the unknown. Like, let's just let it happen and look back and realize how we co-created. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah. Just to be in awe of what we don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely call myself a witch, and I call myself a witch because I'm a priestess of the goddess, and I believe in and practice magic.
Beautiful. So the next question is, what is your definition of magic?
Well, usually when that question is posed to me, I kind of immediately go to one of the greatest definitions, I believe anyway. And although I'm not a fan of how Aleister Crowley lived his life, I do agree with his definition, that being magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. But I also think that it's finding your connection to the earth, to the old gods, and the unseen forces of the universe.
What's my definition of magic? Oh my gosh, that's a juicy one. I'd say working with intention and elements. So whether that's elements of the earth, elements of the universe, elements of life, and being intentional with that, directing that energy where you want to go.
That is pretty much exactly my definition. So we're in the same camp there. You said the word elements, so you had me at hello.
Witch isn't my go-to title, but I don't deny the compliment when someone sees me in that light or recognizes that type of energy within me. I've always been fascinated with the witching world, and although I don't carry that title, it's something I've I always find myself like dabbling in the practice of. So, I mean, I guess I could call myself an aspiring witch because it's something that I think is so fun and really beneficial in your life to be able to kind of tap into that type of energy.
Totally. And I love that you basically started off by saying, I like to accept that compliment, because it's so like contrary to like pop culture up until recently. Like if someone called you a witch, it used to be an insult.
Right. Absolutely.
So funny how the times have changed. I love that people are stepping into their magic now. So that being said, what would you say your definition of magic is?
Yeah, to me, magic is really the product of your own personal power from within, and really owning that innate ability to acknowledge and tap into that power. That's why I mentioned above how I accept that compliment, because I really believe it is tapping into the power that you hold within yourself. So I truly believe that we're all such powerful, unique beings because of this whole world, and our whole universe is just pure magic. The fact that we're even here, you know, we live on a planet that creates life, and in turn we create life ourselves. So I mean, that's just so magical. And if we create life, we can create anything else within that life into existence. So, you know, I really believe in honing into your own power.
So for me, magic is anything that happens that you wouldn't expect, or that people would think could not happen. Kind of like a miracle with a twist. For me, I just set my focus and intention on something and watch it transform. I know for you, you do rituals, you do spells, and that's cool. And for me, I do just more intention and focus and make things happen magically.
I appreciate the simplicity of that.
My definition of magic is a combination of expectation in your regular reality, the surpassing of something delightful, like meaning that something happens and it is beyond your expectation. And then also something that happens that really just expands your understanding of what's possible in your idea of the world.
My magic is definitely, I want to say connection, but like connection in all ways. So connecting to other people, like reading their energy and being able to like support them in that way. But also connecting to my chakra energy and like tapping into my own kind of superpowers that lie in my chakras, and then helping people connect to theirs as well. I feel like we have this like dormant energy that we just let kind of sit there and we don't really know it's there. But when you tap into it, it's like, holy shit, like who knew that was there?
What is your definition of magic?
I think it's really like miracles and things that we can't explain, and it's that serendipitous sort of experiences that we have. So magic can be very intentional, but it has this ethereal sort of serendipitous quality to it.
I like that. I don't think anyone has answered with the word serendipitous yet on the podcast. So now I'm excited because that's a good one. Why are we not all using that word?
How would you define magic?
I do believe that there is a realm that the average consciousness like doesn't fully grasp. In my experience, magic presents itself in the form of synchronicities, where I will be thinking of something or like hoping for something to happen, and I don't necessarily know how it's going to happen, but it does happen. Like, I'm a firm believer in the unexplainable, and the universe works in ways that humans don't fully understand. We all know that humans only use a certain percentage of their brain, and I don't know, it's hard for me to believe that we know everything.
Yeah, I love that though. And I totally agree. I feel like magic is that just unexplained way that we connect to our environment when we're really tapped in and like really paying attention.
So my definition of magic is being able to tap the energies of the universe to get stuff done that other people may believe is completely coincidental, or, hey, that is just really weird that it happened that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right place, right time, to the point where it feels a little weird to some people. I look at that going, oh, that's my everyday life.
So thank you so much, Afira, for inviting me to flip the script on your podcast and, allow me to hold space for you and your listeners to get to know you a little bit more. What is your definition of magic?
I have asked so many people this question, and now I'm like, I don't know. How do I want to define that? Honestly, for me right now, magic is being fully present in the present moment and noticing the magic and the synchronicities and the just power and energy that you have and that you have with your environment. That's accessible all the time, but you only notice it when you're really present and chill and in the moment. So that's kind of my jam, especially this year that we've had. So that's my answer for today. Normally I want to talk about like, oh, the elements and the seasons and all of these things. This is what magic is to me. But obviously that's true to me, but none of that really becomes magical unless we're able to be present with the elements or present with the seasons. So yeah, I'm feeling the presence thing. That's my jam right now.
So how did you land on alchemy? Because alchemy to me is very different than witchcraft. And so I'm curious as to where that popped up for you and what the significance is of that for you.
Really good question. And this is something that goes back to sort of the masculine versus feminine energy sides of myself, because I think everything we talked about so far was more the feminine kind of magic, which is just intuition and going with the flow and feeling into what needs to be done and allowing yourself to just be open and expressive with nature. Whereas the alchemical side of it is more of the like masculine. It's more about like learning systems and structures and creating formulas and sort of like understanding what makes things tick. And like I mentioned, like even though I do have all that like Capricorn energy that I didn't know about until I got into my chart, my like main signs are the masculine ones. And so I'm always attracted to this sort of academic, studious energy. Like, I think if I would laughingly say, like, even though I wouldn't really say my favorite character would be someone like this, I would jokingly say that, like, Mr. Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer is, like, one of my spirit animals, because he's just, like, just this, like, weird old guy that lives in a library drinking tea and, like, reading weird alchemical books and stuff like that. Like, I love that.
Right. He's, like, the knowledge keeper, and, yeah, that's so funny. I love that.
Yeah, so like that part of me is a very real part of me, and so I'm learning to like balance that and make sure that like the masculine and the feminine both have their place in my practice. So essentially the alchemical thing came into play when I really started to get deep into my research into magic and the occult in my like mid-20s and onward. I started coming across this concept of alchemy, and alchemy has become so many different things. Like, you could literally read about how people in the Middle Ages thought they were trying to change metals into things, and then you can go into the concept of how that was all maybe just a metaphor for trying to evolve your consciousness, which is more of like what New Age people tend to think of as alchemy. For me, I just love the concept of the elements: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. And those things are very prominent in the more alchemical side of magic. And so for me, alchemy is the concept of working with those elements and learning how they sort of work in your life, and then in a sort of calculated and knowledgeable way, actually going in and like tweaking things so that you can actually manifest a desired outcome.
So, magical mavens, what is your definition of a witch? Do you call yourself a witch? And what is your definition of magic? As you can see, we could all just talk about this for hours, so I would love to keep the conversation going in the comments. I hope you found some of these nuggets of wisdom inspiring, or that you found some new witchy community members to follow. I'm so grateful that I get to have so many fulfilling conversations with magical people from all walks of life in my line of work. But are you longing for more magical conversation in your life in the year ahead? Part of the reason I started this podcast is because for many years in my early part of my magical journey, I was surrounded by people who totally didn't get it, and I didn't know anyone who was on a similar magical journey to actually talk to and bounce ideas off of. And that's the same reason why we focus our Patreon community around community discussion. There, I post customized reflection prompts for each of the new and full moons of the year, as well as for the themes of each Sabbath on the Wheel of the Year. You get access to beautiful printable writing pages for your spiritual journal, grimoire, or book of shadows, and you get to join in the discussion with myself and other magical mavens as we navigate the plant, tend, harvest, compost cycle together. If you're ready to start or simplify your magical practice while getting grounded in how to actually work with the seasons, moon phases, astrology, and divination tools to experience more fulfillment in your everyday life, then the Writing Witch Patreon community is where you want to be. To learn more, go to writingwitch.com and click on Patreon from the main menu, or just go to www.patreon.com/thewritingwitch. See you there. And to listen to more of the inspiring conversations that I've recorded with my magical friends over the years, I invite you to check out this playlist right here.